Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a short video on Friday, the 20th of September 2024. I hope you're all doing well. I hope everybody had a decent week, and I hope everybody is looking forward to getting into their weekends. I'm doing all right, thank you very much. Had an extremely busy and stressful week this week. Actually, time has just flown. I know I keep going on about it, but it really has. I seem to run out of it this week, trying to get things done that I just simply couldn't get around to getting done. You know, a lot of that is to do with, as I already alluded to in previous videos, the way things are structured now when you're trying to get things sorted out on the telephone. Doesn't matter who it is you're talking to. It could be a bank, could be a doctor's surgery, it could be an authority of some sort where you have to get some sort of particulars, clarified or whatever. But for whatever reason, although the official reason is always we're exceedingly busy at the moment, experiencing very high volumes of calls, and we don't have the manpower or the staff and all that sort of stuff. It seems to be getting more and more acute, that issue. And waiting times on phones, for example, seem to have been extended significantly. I mean, today I had 2 or 3 things I had to sort out where I thought the whole afternoon would suffice. And I got round to not even sorting out, but at least getting hold of the right people, so to speak, on 2 of the 3 things that I had to do. And that was partly down to the fact that I spent altogether over 3.5 hours waiting. I made a note of it. An hour and a half here, an hour and a half there, and whatever there. It's just talk about grueling. And of course, call me a conspiracy theorist by all means. But definitely there is a tactic behind that to try and wear you down and put you off applying for certain things, for example, or just at all fathoming out what entitlements one has. Because a lot of us do have entitlements and rights that we're not even aware of, and they're certainly not going to come to you and tell you. You've got to find these things out for yourself, and often that happens purely by accident. But that said, my little whinge out the way, apart from that, it's been an all right week. I've a bit up and down. I'm not here to talk about my health issues or anything like that. I definitely don't want to bore you with that sort of stuff. But it's been a very challenging week for me personally. And that is the challenge, isn't it, is to cope with the downs when they come, because there's always an up after a down, if you like. So that's kind of where I'm at. I kind of have to keep it to a bit of a day-to-day basis, and just to make sure that I sort of pace myself around things and all that sort of stuff, as we should all do. That would be a general bit of advice I'd give to anybody, to be absolutely honest with you. Pointless hurrying up and waiting at the end of the day. That doesn't do us any favors on any level. Speaking of levels, one of the reasons why I wanted to do this video, and I'm going to keep it a little bit tight and short this video this evening, is I'd like to just respond to something that I came across only today, actually. As you may or may not know, one of the main topics that I look at and question and often try and remind people of to take a bit of a look at themselves, because it's worth it, is the fact that not the idea, not the theory, but the fact that we have been fibbed and lied to when it comes to the realm in which we live, starting with the very geometry of it, the very shape of Earth. And it's not a debate for me as to whether it is or isn't, and whatever, blah, blah, blah. Fact of the matter is, in order to carry out all our navigation and all our mapping and our aviation and our building and everything else, it all requires flat, horizontal baselines to work off. Whether you're carrying out trigonometry, whether you're carrying out celestial navigation, whether you're using spirit levels to make sure that the ground is even so that you can build buildings of whatever size, whether it's building canals, all that stuff, creating maps, all the sort of thing, the establishment of latitude lines by way of elevation angle measurements to Polaris, for example, they all require flat surfaces and horizontal baselines. All of them, all these things that I've just mentioned. There's lots of more, but they're just off the top of my head. So I'm not in the phase or moments of my life at the moment where I'm going to be debating that with anybody. For me, it's gone well beyond the debating point. For me, it's just trying to plant seeds here or there if the opportunity comes up. Because, you know, we get bombarded all the time with things to do with space travel, and another thing has landed here and another thing has been sent out there, and SpaceX and whatever else nonsense gets thrown at us through all media outlets. So all this stuff about I don't have a TV, it doesn't bother me. Well, you walk around with a phone in your pocket. It does. It still affects you because you have media at your disposal 24/7. In fact, it's probably worse having a smartphone than it is having a TV on at home, because you're not always at home. So anyway, that said, I posted something online very recently just pointing out the fact that, you know, the Earth is flat and level and horizontal, hence the word horizon, hence the phrase sea level. It's not called sea curve for a reason. And, you know, a friend of mine made a comment, and this kind of highlighted something to me that I've been noticing now for a little while, and that is that there's a bit of discord within lots of different elements of different communities that critically think about things. And this is the one that seems to really ostracize and really divide. So basically, to put it in a nutshell, and I won't name names, you know, that wouldn't be fair, but I'm just using this as an example. I was kind of, well, the suggestion was made to me to maybe focus on things that are worth fighting for, you know, with the plans of the WHO and the World Economic Fund and all that sort of stuff, rather than always preaching about this stupid flat earth nonsense. I'm paraphrasing there, but that's basically the gist of the message aimed at me. The problem I have with that, not problem, but the issue I suppose I have with that is actually harks back to a bit of a conversation I had with friends a few years ago when we were out and about doing a lot of interacting with the public during the times of lockdown and all that, when people were misinformed to the hilt and told to behave in a way that was not just unnecessary, but just simply wrong. And we were trying to reach the public and explain to them why that was wrong, and things to sort of take note of that of course contradicted the official narrative. And that's the problem, isn't it? Well, they're all doctors and professors and they're saying it's like this. You're not a doctor. What makes you right and them wrong? Well, the fact that there are thousands that also say what we say, only they don't get the airtime because they don't toe the line like the ones you do hear of or hear from, right? Now, the problem, the thing that I like to point out is that, that going back to this conversation, I always contested that unless you are not necessarily aware of flat Earth, if you like, but if you are open to the idea and you're willing to take a look at it and not just be anti the idea and put your shutters down before even giving it any due consideration, then you, as far as I'm concerned, you're not awake. Awake in that term, you know, the term that gets overused, of course, as well. Not woke, by the way. And I'll stick with that. You know, there are some people out there who make some really, really good points about certain aspects of things that we should be paying attention to, whether it's how our societies are structured, who's really in charge, and all these sorts of things. But then they stop when it comes to, for me, one of the biggest topics of all of that is the shape of the Earth. Because if you crack that and you understand how that's a lie and you understand how the lies can be perpetrated, and for that, to understand that, you have to understand how societies are structured, right? Like, you know, for example, peer-reviewed scientists who will say what they're told by their sponsors, you know, and hide behind their doctor titles and their professor titles and all the rest of it, and their certificates. And they obviously won't want to relinquish them because it makes them feel important. They have it on their wall. I have a master's at this, I'm a PhD at that, or whatever. So they're difficult to win around, those people, and they're the very people that the general public will pay attention to because of the titles they have attached to their names, because they've been to university X, Y, and Z. But of course, the reality is much different. right? And, you know, I remember saying to my friend that when we went on one particular march of an educational type and kind in London a few years ago, I remember there was someone stood relatively next to me, close to me, on the very same march, wearing a NASA hat, right? And we sort of jokingly said, well, you know, it doesn't really matter because we have the numbers and that's the main thing. But actually afterwards, I gave it some thought and I thought to myself, well, actually for me it does matter though. It matters because it's important for that person who thinks they may have cracked it in terms of knowledge around general stuff. Well, actually they don't if they're still wearing a hat that says NASA on it, because NASA have been proven liars now for years. They've been debunked years and years and years ago, by the way. That's not my idea. There are thousands and thousands of hours of footage showing and clearly exposing the fakery from NASA. NASA, also known as not a space agency, right? So, and I just thought to myself with my friend when we were talking about this, you know, there are levels to being awake, right? Because the very same people still think, for example, that politics is relevant and that your Donald Trumps, or in our case, your Keir Starmers, have any influence at all and have any power at all, you know, over us and over how our life gets dictated and determined going forward and stuff. And that couldn't be further from the truth. I've said this many, many, many times, that, and I know this because I've been down to Westminster in the times when I studied politics before I went on a scholarship to Germany back in the early 90s. And one of the things that we noticed, having spoken to people like chief whips of parties, they're the ones who keep the party in line and stuff like that. They're sort of responsible for the discipline side of things. You know, they were saying to me that, you know, people can't even, they don't even get to choose what colour tie to wear when they stand in front of a camera to give an interview. Everything is quite literally scripted for them. What they say, how they behave, how they look, definitely what they wear, and all the rest of it. Nothing is left to chance. Nothing at all, right? Everything is absolutely how they want the public to see it when it then gets presented to you through, for example, the 6 o'clock news, just to give an example, right? So if people can start to then maybe understand that at least to that level it's all scripted, well then it doesn't take too much of a jump to think a bit further than that, right? And so it goes on. So if you get your head around that and also have knowledge of the fact that we are being lied to in terms of the shape of the earth, right? Then suddenly you gain a bigger picture on things. Suddenly you understand that things like the World Health Organization and the World Economic Fund and the World this and the World that and the United Nations, there's another one, they're not in charge of anything. They are puppet organizations there for our consumption, to give us the illusion that there is due process in things. There is democracy at play. You know, there are procedures being carried out. That the little people also get listened to as well as the bigger, more powerful ones. That there are bad countries and not so bad countries and all that sort of nonsense. It's total nonsense. And again, there's plenty of proof out there to show that that's nonsense, because all your so-called world leaders all answer to the same masters. They all belong to the same relatively secretive organizations. That's who they answer to. That's where they get their orders from. They don't listen to the public. They don't get voted into anything. They are selected and presented to us. And when the powers that are done with them, they're replaced. That's how that works. So when someone criticizes me that I should be focusing more on what the World Health Organization is up to, or the United Nations, or the World Economic Fund, or Forum, and all these make-believe organizations with nice names to them, as opposed to pushing the whole fact that we're being lied to about the realm in which we live on, or in, then I'm afraid they've got it badly wrong. They've got it badly wrong. The people who are appealing to those make-believe organizations to try and fight battles are the ones who are badly mistaken, and they are the ones who are wasting their time and their energy by looking at the wrong culprits, right? It takes years to understand that, but trust me, and I'm not the only one, I've learned from others, there are plenty of people out there who also get the gist. That's the way the whole thing is supposed to be run. You can't hold anybody accountable, right? Because they are, as someone once said, here today, gone tomorrow, right? They are replaceable. They are selected and not elected. You know, there is no responsible person to be had in any of this, because the ones who are perpetrating everything are never to be seen. They're always in the background. They're always in the wings, pulling the strings. That's how it is. I could go into more detail, but I won't, because it would be boring. So, you know, like I said, I don't mind a conversation, and I don't mind, you know, having a difference of opinion on topics and stuff. What I do mind is if somebody is pointing a finger at me, telling me how I should be, what I should be thinking, all the rest of it, but not having got their facts straight in the process. That's an issue for me. So, you know, whether people like it or not, and whether people think that flat earth is stupid, well, you're supposed to think it's stupid. That's the whole point. That is why it gets ridiculed. That is what the mainstream media have managed over years and years and years. That the people's first response when they hear flat earth is to go, oh, how dumb, you know. Or if you criticize something, I've often heard this as well, oh, you'll be telling me you're a flat earther next. You know, they use it as words of ridicule when they utter the word flat earth or flat earther. Well, I'm not a flat earther. I'm a person who's definitely come to the conclusion, having done lots and lots of research and used their observations and their discernment, that what we've been told, are absolute lies. And ironically enough, how I got to this point of understanding that they are all lies were through other events that happened years before, that woke me up to learning how to look at things differently, how to filter stuff out, not pay attention to the paid puppets on your TV screens or on your radios, right? Be they news presenters or the people presented by those presenters to us for our consumption, right? So there's a far bigger picture to all of this than criticizing a prime minister or a president or some sort of United Nations bullshit organization. They are just all there for our consumption. They are not in power of anything. So just to get that absolutely straight. Anyway, rant-ish over. But I just wanted to make that clear. On a more positive note, although I think that was quite a positive message, because hopefully that spurred people on to actually go, well, yeah, he might have a point there. Let's go and have a look. Who are these people who control the ones that come and go in front of our TV screens? Well, you have buildings that house these people in every village and town throughout the country and throughout every country on earth. There's a hint for you. On another note, this coming Tuesday, the 24th of September, I will be hosting and facilitating the Flat Earth Social. I won't be giving a presentation per se. I might stand up front with the microphone and kind of introduce myself a little bit and talk about one or two things. But generally what I would like to do, well, even with the aid of a USB stick and some pictures in the background perhaps, but what I would really like to do is have a bit of an interactive conversation with the group and have people, you know, what we basically do at the Flat Earth Social before and after a presentation. Those bits where people mingle and talk and chat and network and all that sort of stuff. They're the parts of the social event that I've always enjoyed the most. That is no criticism towards those who have presented, because I regard them all as friends. But the point I'm making is that bit is always real fun, because you sort of suss where everybody's at. Everybody's got sort of information that's important to them that they'd like to share to others as well, and all that sort of thing. And of course, for me, the coolest bit is learning and gaining more knowledge. Oh, not heard that one before. Oh, that's interesting. I'll go and look that up, and that sort of thing. So that will be this Tuesday, the 24th of September at 7 p.m. at the Bridge House Hotel in Ferndown on the fringes of Bournemouth. Please come along and support me. And if you want to just come along for a chit chat and maybe, you know, gain a different perspective on certain things and all that good stuff, you know, and breathe. Okay. So on that note, thanks for popping in and having a little look. If you're not watching this right now, then you are watching it right now because this is a recording. How confusing is that? But in the meantime, I'll see you all soon, and some of yous, hopefully, much, much sooner. Until then, take it all easy, and ta-ta for now. Bye-bye.